It's one of those. Yeah. That's how we do. All right. Good evening, Brian. Good evening, Dylan. Hi, Chuck. Hi, Chuck twice. Clayton. Good evening. For joining. You ready to roll intro, Kenny?
I'm ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, fans, and followers, welcome to the ABTA Tuesday Night Live, where we are sitting at the intersection of fact and fiction for all things tracking, where theory meets application, and we bring it to you the only way we know how. No politics, no nonsense. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. So before we roll, I want to get a couple of plugs in here before we jump into the topic of the hour. And first thing, we've talked about it before. You've done a lot of posts about the developing mentorship program. You've posted about it. We posted about it. And we've talked about it here on the podcast or the live stream. We'll get Emily on once it matures a little bit more. But if you're interested in being a mentor in the program, go to the Facebook page, scroll around. The application for the mentors is there, and we're welcoming those applications for mentors. It was very well received when we launched it. I was working with Emily on the educational material for that stuff today, and we couldn't have asked for a better leader in that mentorship program. So if you're interested in mentorship, being a mentor in the ABTA, give us a shout and we'll get you the application. The other thing I want to touch on real quick is, we got the IO event coming up. We're like just under a month away now. It's going well. I think we're going to close the season with a banger, Kenny. I think it's shaping up to be good. Registrations, we're up, we're around 20 people registered now. Tests, we're probably 11 or so tests, I think, scheduled right now. So we've got some good stuff coming there. So it's not too late. I'd encourage everybody, if you want to come to the event finale for the ABTA, get to Iowa. It's not too late. It is going to be a very, very good event. Things are shaping up to be really nice there, and in terms of content delivery, we're pretty stoked about it. The Iowa guys are great to work with, and they're pretty stoked about it too. So, and I am going to go. I was balancing on the head of a pin for a long time. I finally got pushed off very violently and aggressively. Mullins. No, I'm kidding. You didn't push me, but no, I'm going to go, and I'm excited about it. So that'll be fun. Do a few tests.
Heavy persuasion.
Yes, yeah, that's what you call it. Yeah. So before we jump into the, I guess leading into the topic tonight, Kenny, you would probably agree that the tracking world, it requires a lot of, and sometimes situationally, you got to think on your feet. You got to adapt. You got to move. You got to be nimble. You got to deal with the cards you're dealt in the moment. Is that pretty fair?
That's right.
Good. Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I've got some subject matter experts to help us with tonight's event and topic. It's so perfect. It's going to bleed right into to what we're talking about tonight in Breed.
I know why you forgot to send me the link.
What's that?
Now I know why you forgot to send me the link. You were orchestrating all of this.
Well, this has been orchestrated for a while. And what in the heck got into you today when I send you some innocuous link about or topic about something that you go all full tilt boogie, and man, then we have like these Emmy nominated promos and crap. I'm like, oh no. No, everybody wants to talk about it. So this is my Bloodhound crew. So what we have, you might recognize the bald guy. That's Ron Slifer. Have you met Ron, Kenny?
No.
Ron runs Bloodhounds. And then you also notice in my upper right, we have Megan Schmidt in the orange from Oklahoma. Say hi, Megan.
Hello.
Megan, a couple of Bloodhounds. In the middle, but in the bottom is Dylan Johnson. Dylan is a tracker in Illinois. Dylan, what do you run?
Bloodhounds, of course. The only dogs.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Oh,
Bloodhounds.
my gosh.
And then Jake Miller. Then you'll see Jake in my bottom right. I presume the three is for you. Jake, I have to believe you probably run Bloodhounds too, don't you?
Yeah, I'm from Illinois. We pretty much all have Bloodhounds, really.
Yeah. So
one day you guys will see the light.
So we're talking about breeds tonight, and I couldn't think of a better way to just
get back at me
than talking about
just call it what it is. Get back at me.
And the amazing accomplishments that we have that these bloodhounds do. So the breed tendencies. We've titled this stream, tracking styles and breed tendencies for the common tracking breeds. And I think, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. The SMEs that we've got here, the subject matter experts that we've got here, I would say that bloodhounds, their tendency is to just freaking find deer. Would you agree with that?
Heck
Absolutely.
no. Heck no.
Yeah. Jake,
their tendency is to go wherever they think that their nose is going to take them. It don't matter if it's
deer. Yeah.
We'll dive into it a little bit. You all know, I mean, I know Ron knows. I know you know, Matt, but I did have a bloodhound. Yeah. I train a lot of bloodhounds, but we'll dive into that later. I'm gonna give you a hard time still, especially after you're doing me dirty like this.
I'm not doing you dirty. I just tried to get some. Here we go. I just tried to get some subject matter experts to help us along tonight.
They just haven't seen the light yet. Ron's getting a tackle.
No, Ron's wife is getting a tackle. Ron, you're on mute or something, buddy. We can't. Your audio. We don't have your audio, Ron. There you go. We had it for a second.
I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
There you go. We got you now, buddy.
I liked it better the other way.
My God.
You got to speak softly on that tackle because the wife is in the other room. So,
well, we might have one bred. We're going to find out.
Oh, well, good luck. Good luck with that.
Oh my goodness, Crew Dog Mafia has your back. Kenny Landon is already. This is gonna be so fun. Oh my goodness gracious! So yeah, Kenny. So you have nobody to blame but yourself for this. I was moving on it until last week, and then all right, that's it.
Well, I'm glad that I wrote the notes that I did leading into this so that I could tell the truth when I'm outnumbered here.
Oh my gosh.
It was some divine intervention that led me to write the notes for tonight.
Was it? Okay. Well, look, in all seriousness, we are going to be relentless with you tonight, Kenny. So, but I do want to get into the topic. But before we do, let's have our guests just introduce themselves a little bit, and then I do want to talk about the other breeds and stuff, and then we'll sprinkle in just these outstanding shining moments. So, two of our guests are veterans of the show, Ron Slifer and Megan Schmidt. Yep. Megan is also in the process of becoming a judge for the ABTA, and then new guest is Dylan Johnson and Jake Miller. So. Let's start with Dylan, and we'll just go around quickly. If you guys don't mind, just give us your 45-second tracking bio. Where you track, and we know you track with bloodhounds. We know that, so we know. We don't even talk about your recovery numbers or anything because we know you recover a lot of deer. Dylan, just tell us a little about how long you've been.
Doesn't want to hear those low numbers from the bloodhounds.
No, I don't. Yeah. I mean.
But I'm from Southern Illinois, Harrisburg, Illinois. I tracked down by Shawnee National Forest. Not sure if anybody knows what that is, but it's hill and bluff country down here. And this would be my second season coming up. Last year was our first season, and we had a pretty rock star first season, I feel like, for a first team, but it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have had a bloodhound. And she really impressed me and done awesome with how she tracked. But that's where I'm from, down here in God's country. I like to call it Southern Illinois. So
yeah, it is nice. And Dylan, you may not remember what we did when I was at the event down there. We did meet, or we were around. I don't know if we had a conversation or not, but yeah, that was fun. Jake, we did meet when I was there. You were running the station and stuff. In fact, I got Matt plays dirty bullets dog tracking. I wonder who posted that. But Jake, give us your tracking bio, buddy.
So I'm from Staunton, Illinois. Tracking distance, I don't know. I pretty much go wherever as time allows. We're walking into our 6th season now, so just kind of going from there.
Just going from there, yeah. And we did meet. So I want to tell this quick story. When we at the event this year, you and or at least I don't know if you were running the station, but you were hanging around the station with Tom and Ray at the road crossing. Were you help facilitating that? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The drill station. Well, that was a defining moment for me at that event at that station. And I've talked about it before, but I'll just tell you since you were there. When Tom asked me to run one of the lines, that and my dog didn't really want to take it because she's so smart. But she did halfway take it. She crossed the road and she went down to where all the other dogs were going to. Then Tom says, "No, that's not it. Bring her back. Do it again." And as I was bringing her back, he says, "Yeah, that line is laid with just blood only." I go, "Interesting." So I put her on it, tried to get her. She wouldn't take it. She kept going over to the other hoof only line. She would not take that blood only line. So I'm like, "Holy smokes, that was." I said, "Tom, I'm not going to get after her for that." I was pretty. It was a defining moment, or at least what the heck moment, man, for me. So that was a lot of fun. I have since done some experiments that I'm not going to get into or test, but yeah, it was fun. The whole event was good. Megan Schmidt, let's give followers your tracking bio.
I'm Megan. I am in Central Oklahoma. This will be our 4th season tracking for the public. 4th season strong with bloodhounds. We do have a Catahoula pup now that we are going to start this year for my daughter, but just the bloodhounds are too much for her to handle right now. So we just
so you're getting smart.
We dove in deep with the Catahoula for her.
Well, look, Kenny, you don't start out driving a freaking Ferrari. You start out with the Chevette.
She's pretty gung-ho about it, but her and Creole and her are not they're not real eye to eye. He's a lot bigger than her, so she found her a Catahoula pup. But I track with Briar and Creole. Like I said, this will be their 4th season. Creole will be 4 in December, and Briar will be 4 in February. So they've got 4 pretty good seasons under their belt, but we're trying to expand this year since all my kids are in school now and do hopefully a lot more tracks this season and really get them a lot more seasoned going into next year. So that's
so Megan, I don't know if you caught what Matt said. You don't start out with a Ferrari, you start out with a Chevette. So now you're going to the Ferrari.
Oh no, we started with the Ferraris.
No, I'm starting out with kids. With kids, you don't.
I got
put a
2
kid
of
in the
those.
Ferrari.
The Caterpillar is more of a science experiment, really. We have 4 bloodhounds in the family, so it's 2 of them track and 2 of them don't. And
that's typical, 50-50 out of them.
Well, Annie could track on it. I mean, she's good. She has some bad habits from before her adoption with us, so we put her down to 3rd string. So
you've come a long way.
Ron's about to bust at the seams over here.
All right, thanks, Megan.
She's had a rough go of it. Let's just put it that way. But she's a good dog.
Ron, remind us who you are, buddy.
Ron Slifer, and I'm near Watson, Illinois, which is in East Central Illinois. I generally say I'm from the area. A lot of people might know where that is, but basically between right in between. And we'll track all over kind of Illinois and sometimes maybe bop out of state occasionally, not too often anymore. But yeah, we're blessed in the land of corn and soybeans, which means nice chickens up here. And blessed by that. The farmers really feed the deer pretty good, and a good number of deer up here. A lot of hunters. Keep pretty busy all year, all season long. It's going to be here.
It's nipping at our heels, and I mean you got one of the best breeds to do it in one of the busiest parts of the nation. So that's good stuff, man. So I want to say this, Ron. I'm thrilled that three of your pups from 2.0 are right here in Michigan. You know, so I get 2 of them are right close with Dylan and John, and then Andrew, who got little britches, apple fritter. Oh my goodness, he and I have become pretty good friends, and so I get to watch the pup that I wanted so desperately develop with Andrew. It's really a lot of fun, man. And I watch Dylan and John with their stuff. It's cool to watch those pups develop.
Well, both has got a pup. They always take things come to. We had Jewel.
Yeah, you keep breaking up a little bit, buddy. Makes it a little bit hard. I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
The video is fine. It's just the audio breaking up.
Yeah, it's just the audio that chops a little bit. But yeah, that's cool. We'll get through it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. What was I going to say? So before we get into the rest of the topic, one of the things that we're kicking around in the testing committee is anybody that signs up, registers a bloodhound, there's no need to test. We're just going to go ahead and mail them the ribbon and the certificate. It'll
take 2 years to get there because that's how long it takes to finish the line.
That's still in committee phase.
You need to follow my dog.
Oh man. Well, guys, look, in all seriousness, this is a lot of fun, and Kenny, we're not done piling on with the bloodhound stuff, but and guys, please feel free to chime in. But we although this is a lot of fun, and I totally ambushed you, and I've been giddy all week about this, but we can have a pretty fun and interesting conversation about breed tendencies and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And when you posted that, there was a lot of more than usual comments about and feedback about excited about the topic. So as fun as it is to just totally sit here and rail on you about the superiority of bloodhounds, let's do talk about some stuff that to make the lesser breeds feel inclusive, because we are inclusive here at the ABTA. So we want to make sure that we do do talk about topics and let other people at least feel like they're part of the club.
So, before being ambushed like this, we really didn't talk a lot. So I put together some notes because, based off of the title alone. And, of course I included breeds in there. And of course, Bloodhound was one of them in my notes.
Of course it was. I mean,
I had to have that in there because, there are some, people that are about the same mental capacity of a bloodhound. So I had to.
Well, there are a lot.
Hang on, Matt. You'll catch that in about an hour.
Superiorly intellectual people out there. I agree.
Yeah. So no, what I jotted down here, Matt, and if I'm too far off topic from what you were looking at, just
no. Go ahead, buddy. It truly is just Go ahead. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, well, before leading into breeds, because this always leads into you had tracking styles and breed tendencies, common tracking styles and breed tendencies.
Yeah,
a lot of people when they listen to a live stream or a podcast like this, they're listening because they're interested in trying to decide their next breed.
Yeah,
and you can't decide your next breed unless you talk about everything involved. And so the first thing I started off with is on lead versus off lead. And what I wanted to tie this in with is not just on lead tracking versus off lead tracking, but also tying in some training aspects, some advantages and disadvantages of each one. Because even if you can't track off lead in your state, you could train a dog. And there's some advantages to that.
Oh, I think there's a lot of advantages to that. I'm a huge advocate for
it. Some things I jotted down is like, on lead versus off lead sculpts the style of the dog and the handler. It's on lead tends to produce a kind of a steadier line hold, and off lead can create more casters. One advantage to off lead training is you develop more problem solving skills because handlers tend to overhandle and they steer the dogs on the line because of that lead.
Yeah.
So, not saying one is better than the other. I think a good combination of both. But when you start talking about breeds, you need to look at these things, on lead, some of the pros, especially training, is sculpting that line discipline that a lot of people look for. And I'm more task discipline oriented. But some of the pros would be, having control near roads and livestock houses, safety concerns. It's also great if you have a young dog and you're in a high contamination area. Where you can have a little more control over that dog and work through some stuff, especially bloodhound. They're going to get locked in and who knows what and just keep going.
Well, that's where the deer's at. So you're right.
But some of the cons, is narrows the casting ability. It can slow the pace, obviously, because you can't keep up with a dog. I don't care who you are, you're going to have to slow them down. An off lead, the pros of dog ranges, uses wind and terrain, shines on age tracks where, you have scent pull and drift because they have more room to get out of it and work out of it than a lot of times that lead being restrictive. And I just wanted to touch on that because that's going to lead into, as you start deciding on breeds and tracking styles, I actually prefer a hybrid approach where I start the dogs on lead, to confirm the line. And then, then I'll cut them loose. Even in training, I train every dog on lead, and I train every dog off lead, to help with that problem solving, the independency, to have that balance. But if you're strictly tracking one or the other, that can be a big determining factor on what breed you want to go with. And so I wanted to start off touching on that. You guys have anything to add there?
Yeah, I want Ron, if you were getting ready to lean in, just wave me off. But I do want to comment on something you said, Kenny, and this is very sincere. Um, you talked about when you're talking about on lead versus off lead and the problem solving of the dog and things like that, and the handler on lead can be a little quicker to make a correction or insert themselves. And there was a photo. My friend Tom. He was at the event. He commented on Facebook, and this is so right. I think if you understand scent science and scent theory, if you got a firm grasp on that, that is going to allow you to be more patient. I think to allow your dog to do what it's doing because you understand what the dog is doing. If you that's on or off lead. Off lead is absolutely liberating, but even on lead, if you understand that, you can resist that urge to want to take them back to last blood or start you're pull them out of the middle of a problem solving process, because you think they're off or you think they're confused or lost. So just understanding how that scent works can breed that patience and confidence to allow you to stand back and let your dog solve the problem. And Tom commented on that. And I thought it was just so good that that was kind of a defining moment for him. No audio, Ron.
Why? What's going on? You still can't hear
There
me?
you are. You're back.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. That's pretty great. When we breed puppy or have puppies and gear towards selling towards trackers, and that's what I like to tell a lot of guys when they're getting into tracking is it's not just a dog. It's good to have a good, clean understanding of the scent and what it does. Read up on it, research that, and then also just observe a lot when you're out in the woods with your dog. You'll see what the dog's doing. And that's an important fact. But as far as trying to keep up with speed wise on the dog, it's like the first dog I had, Dio. I never worked on that. I just let him pull me where he wanted to go, and it's kind of funny, because a lot of tracks we do. I'm 61 years old now, but back in the day, 5-6 years ago, still up there in age in her 50s and wearing out guys that are in their teens, or 20 years old. Like, how do you do this? And the easy part was just holding on to the lead and letting the dog pull me. That was my secret. It wasn't so much me. I was just holding on tight, and if I lost my footing, I got dragged. But it was always freaking the younger hunters out. Like, how does this old man do this? And they didn't know the dog was doing all the work for me. I was just trying to stay on my feet.
I will tell you what. When I had Brew on lead, my big butt, she helped me out of a ditch or two.
Yeah.
Greasy side ditch because when I had her hooked up.
But in all fairness, like I said, I've had bloodhounds tracking all the time for like 13 years now. But I've trained with a couple guys that's had Teckles, and it's like I'm amazed on how hard they can pull.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The smaller dog can really, for no bigger than they are, they can get a good pull on that lead.
Well,
and I will say this: what gets really frustrating with them is they go under everything.
yeah,
which means that lead goes under everything. So you're bending down, picking that lead up, dropping it way more than you are with the slobber box.
So you know what? Can you say that? I heard Ray talk about it. Well, when I was in Illinois, he was talking about the big giant bushy bean fields that they have down there, way different we have here. How his dogs were in essence a sewing needle sewing the beans with his lead because they were going under and up and under and up. Whoops. But breed tendency, right? They have a tendency to go under because they're smaller.
Yeah. Where the bloodhound seems like it's just going to go through anything it wants to go through. It'll just plow through it. Seems like.
Yeah, they're bulldozers.
They are. Yeah,
And that's
just mine will
that's
go
the
up,
bad
she'll go over.
thing, that comparison with on lead and off lead. If you're on lead and you got to hold that lead, well, guess what? You're going through that brush pile with that dog more than likely.
Yes.
So,
Or you're dropping it and running around real quick.
yeah, you learn to do that pretty good. Yes, for sure.
If y'all can't tell, I did spend some years behind a bloodhound.
No, you did. And you have video to prove it. I believe you. Yep.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Kane, and then Jake and Dylan. I want to get you here in a little bit, but on a couple things.
Yeah.
Feel free to chime in with any questions or comments, or you too, Megan, with anything that you guys would add. But go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, I was just going to dive into the tracking styles and handler influence. Because that directly ties into it.
I agree.
And kind of what I phrase this as line holders versus problem solvers. And of course there's some in between, but you're like bloodhounds, your coon hounds, typically are head down, drive forward. They're strong, continuous on lines, but the downside of that is they'll often blow past a lot of stuff because they're so focused and just plowing through. So that takes some training, quite a bit of training. Probably the biggest thing I see with bloodhounds that get sent to me is that right there. They lock in and they just keep going and they'll blow past stuff. And typically it's just from a newer handler, newer trainer that just doesn't know how to work through that.
I will attest to that. I've been on plenty of goose chase with the bloodhound when she was younger. She did absolutely miss a turn, and I'm 400 yards at the road while the hunters are standing at the deer. Some of that's my fault. Not really in tune enough with her to know that she was just going that way because I was letting her go that way. So
yeah, and the thing is, some of these breeds, like bloodhounds, I mean, sometimes they don't give you any clue. It's like they just lock in, they're focused, and they just keep going.
She was like that. She was like that when she was young. I can tell better now that she's older. But it was frustrating a couple of times when she was younger.
And there are definitely some benefits to that line holder type style. Then I come down here to more of the problem solvers, which kind of I put in here is like your Teckles, your Bavarians, your Curs. They'll pause, they'll cast, they'll circle, they'll bridge gaps, typically a lot quicker. But they've got the downside to that is sometimes they'll blow past stuff because they're working so fast. So there's give and take on everything. The problem is you need to really know what type of handler you are to pair yourself to the right dog. Because if you're a micromanaging handler, some of these breeds are not going to be right for you. A micromanaging handler doesn't need a lab.
Well, hold on, Kenny, because this is interesting, and I think I know what you mean. But will you say micromanager? Give us an example of a micromanaging handler.
That you want to handle every portion of that line, and you can really it's overhandling is what it is.
Yeah.
And someone who has a tendency to do that, because sometimes you just can't change that in a person. So the way to overcome that is to have the right breed to match that style. You take someone who wants to micromanage a dog and you give them a lab, they're never going to be successful if they don't change. But you take someone
is that because the lab's just tendency for just pretty Gestapo-like obedience to their
they want to please you.
They want to please you, so they're gonna. So okay, yeah.
And a Teckle falls into that, and we'll get into that when we break down breeds a little further. But the micromanager, you know, it really it creates a dependency on the handler from the dog. And I know you've probably seen people, a dog always looks back, a dog checks in with me. You might be a micromanaging handler and not realize it. You know, so you know, you want to pair yourself with a breed like a Catahoula or a Blackmouth or a Lacey, or, you know, something that's going to be very independent and really doesn't give a crap what you think or what you're doing. They're gonna do their job. You know, it's you know, even a bloodhound. I mean, a bloodhound would fit a micromanaging handler, because a bloodhound, they're like a bulldozer. They're just going to follow that trail, you know. And you, oftentimes they don't care what you say, what you do, even if they're wrong. I mean, you guys know, y'all are bloodhound handlers. You know, one of the tough things in training and developing a bloodhound is the obedience side, because they get locked in. They're so stubborn. And
I will wholly attest to that.
You know,
and that you know, you take the good with the bad, right? You want that stubborn independence when they know they're right, but if they maintain that same level of stubborn independence when they're wrong, that's a problem. But when they're right, my dog's stubborn independence made me look like a fool a couple times last year. Thank God, and we recovered 2 pretty nice bucks because of it.
I will say that I had 2 tracks, now that we're talking, you know, about that I was going to mention that I had last year, and you're talking about stubborn independence. And one deer, it went off into this WRP and kind of went to the left. You could see like a little bit of the blood trickling that disappeared. Well, she went over to the left and swooped and then hooked back to the right. Well, the hunter's like, nah, that deer went this way. Well, me being the first year, I'm like, well, I'll pull her off. Well, whenever I try to pull her off, it was like trying to drag a bull. And I got her back over there, and as soon as I didn't get her sat down and start. Boom, she was back to the right. Well, 200 yards to the right, we found the deer. And another one, she just kind of was like, I could tell she's off. It was one of the first recoveries I had, and I'd pull her back, and it was easy to bring her back and sit her down, put her almost in timeout. And like, I'd call it timeout. Like, I could tell she crit her. I'd stop, tie her up, stay. I'd walk away for 15 minutes. I wouldn't let her stand up. As soon as she'd stand up, I'd tell her to sit back down. And after that, it was just like a complete different dog. But I will say, like, following different dogs that I have followed, watching, labs are super bad about bracketing, really hard. Like, I feel like they're so hard to read to me. In my mind, they're just so fast and everywhere. And a Bavarian is very, so what I've noticed with them, they're very steady on the line, and they're very good with line obedience, but they will blow corners because they're so dead set on it, more than what I've seen. But just something I just want to add in there about
yeah,
that.
That's actually that's actually you're hitting everything, and you're hitting the nail on the head of stuff that I had coming up with the bracketing and the Bavarians. I mean, it's like you read my notes.
You'll get that with bloodhound owners, you know, just the intuitiveness and stuff. But go ahead.
That's it. So somebody else can chime in.
I was just going to circle back to what he said about having the different types of dogs. What Kenny said. I have, like I said, I've got four bloodhounds. 2 that I track with consistently, and then I have Annie, which is my 3rd string dog. But Briar and Creole are completely different in every aspect of the way. And I'm sure Ron can probably attest to this. He's got multiple different dogs that he's tracked behind. But Briar brackets, she casts, she wins sense, she uses her disability, I'm going to call it, with her shorter ears. I think, and overcomes that by using those techniques in her tracking. She does not stay, nose to the ground on the line like Creole does, for instance. So when I'm looking at the track and I get information from the hunter on, where we're going and what the situation is, as far as, the terrain and where they perceive the deer was shot, that's when I determine which dog I'm going to take. Usually I take them both. This year I will be taking them probably on every track, but in like larger open fields with less, woods and, thickets and briars and stuff like that, I'll usually take Creole because he's a lot more true and doesn't do the bracketing and the casting the way that Briar does. Briar is a lot more methodical when it comes to, like the deep woods and navigating, steep terrain. Like Max said, he had he got pulled out of a ditch by his dog, and I did last year. We went 50 feet up, straight up, after a buck that we were tracking, and Briar definitely helped pull me up that. But I just think it's really fascinating, in my experience anyway, that even though they're all the same breed, all three of them track completely differently. Annie is very slow. She's very, wants to be sure of every step. She's real, you can tell that she's thinking about the process the entire time. Creole is like, I know where it's at, and he just goes for it. Yeah. And then Briar, she tries to rule out, like, well, did they go over here? Did it go over here? She doesn't follow true to the line all the time, and she uses a lot more, like I said, the wind scenting and the bracketing and casting to her advantage. And I've actually gotten busted on that during her testing events before, because she is a bloodhound. A couple of judges told me, she should be, nose to the ground. And I'm like, well, that's just not how she tracks. That's not her style. No. And I've grown accustomed to the way that she does. And I feel like she's a real easy read for me, but I could see somebody else, going behind her. It would probably be more confusing because she is a bloodhound and that's what's expected. But that's fine.
Yeah. And when I talk about stuff like this, it's a generalized, it's, the majority do this. You're always going to have the exceptions. And just like Dean said in the comments, which we'll hit in a little bit, you'll see differences between male and female, and that's a given. I mean, I personally prefer female dogs, and it's because of that reason, which we can dive into, but you're definitely going to have the exceptions.
I was going to qualify that too, Kenny, that, we're talking, there are no absolutes. When we talk about breed tendencies, that's what it is, just tendencies, not absolutes and generalizations, because there are general tracking style differences, but you'll have differences within breeds. So I just wanted to qualify that again, to validate your point, Megan. And for all of the listeners, we're not saying that a bloodhound will be nose to ground, a Bavarian is going to be head up, and a lab's going to always bracket. They're tendencies and generalizations. So go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to tie in. These next three things is ground huggers, nose down versus air scenting, and fast, methodical, independent, and dependent. I'll just kind of go through them real fast and then let you guys touch on them. But your ground huggers, which, if you notice, we talked about line holder versus problem solver, and I didn't have the Teckles into the line holders, although they do. But down here, when I started putting all this together, your Teckles and your bloodhounds are typically nose to the ground, and they toe that line. They audit every footstep. They're great on old / cold scent, and they typically work it a little slower than some of the other breeds, like your air centers, which are your labs, DDs, your bird dogs, your curs, that they're head up riding the thermals. However, when they do overshoot it because they're focused on that scent that may be suspending in the thermals, and especially when you hit a field and that all of a sudden is gone because the wind is blowing it 50 yards away, then they have to slow down and reset and become nose to the ground and work through that. And I've seen this firsthand. I have actually worked a Teckle with my cur and watched my cur, working more air scenting, and got off into a scent pull or scent drift, and my Teckle's true to the line. My Teckle beat the cur to the end, to the deer. because of that. So there's advantages, disadvantages of everything.
So your cur's a cutter and a slasher, and your Teckle's a line straddler, basically. And the cutter and the slasher.
Yeah, now my cur will, when she needs to, she will.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah, I don't think cutting and slashing is. I don't mean that in a bad way. Yeah.
No, but their natural tendencies is to move fast, keep their head up, and work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Then you throw in the handler influence of trying to correct every head lift and trying to force it to the ground, and the problem is you're trying to change the dog's natural abilities, and you're not going to do that. Or sometimes there's just more scent suspending in that air, trapped in that moisture in the air, and you're trying to force the dog's nose out of the scent. And then we kind of talked about fast versus methodical. Your faster breeds are typically your labs, your curs, your bird dogs, your cur dogs. They cover a lot of ground, good for intercepts, but it can result in overrunning checks.
Yeah.
Your more methodical dogs like your, Bavarians, your Teckles, your bloodhounds. And, of course, Teckles are in this, ground huggers and methodical because they got such short legs. They don't get out of it. When they do get out, they're in such a panic to get back into it. Because
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's, but there's pros and cons to everything. And, you just have to figure out what fits you. And you go down here to your independent versus dependent breeds. Like we talked about, the curs, Bavarians, they decide without checking in, they're great at solving puzzles. They really are. Mm-hmm. And I can't help but think it's because they overrun stuff so often. They learn early on that, hey, I got out of it. Now I got to figure out how to get back into it. That the downside is if they're not properly trained, it can be dangerous because they go off and run some off game quick. So you got to stay on top of that. And then you have your.
They're quick to go on the fun and exciting, hot, fresh, whatever.
Huh? Yeah. And then you have your bloodhounds that do that too. I mean.
Yeah, no, and they will. They just
they will. They will. But but they're more independent, so that they're just going to go hunt for because they love the hunt.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that as a derogatory shot at all. It was sincere that so to your point of training, then making sure that they understand the target odor and are disciplined enough to maintain it.
Right. Now, then you go to like your dogs that tend to be a little more dependent on you is like your labs, your GSDs. Now GSDs, and then you start leaning over into like Malinois, they go off in that more independent, because they got a mix of both. They can be dependent on you, but they just have that ability to want to do their own thing, range out a little more.
See, that's interesting. Go ahead, buddy. I was going to say, my first year I got into it was training my daughter and son-in-law's German Shepherd dog, and she wanted she would get out a little bit, but she was always worried about where her people were.
Yep.
And maybe based on what you said, looking back, maybe that was just she was looking for validation because she was so new to it. I don't know, but she was very interested in where we were. And we were doing her off lead because her recall was fantastic. But
I mean, I've trained a lot of them, and they're like that. But now you get into like the Dutches are lean a little more dependent on the handler, but then you go to the Malinois and they're not.
Yeah. So
it's pretty interesting. It's all genetics, obviously.
Yeah.
If I'm mainly tracking on lead, I like having that more dog that's dependent on you. I shouldn't say dependent on you, but they want to be part of you as a team.
More in tune with you.
Right. And like Megan said, I like having multiple dogs for different scenarios for that reason, because there are times where there's no one perfect dog that covers everything when you go on the amount of tracks that some of us do.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, you can build independence, but it's a lot harder to build independence in a dog that is dependent. Or if you created a dependency early on in your training, it's hard to bring that independence back out of them.
Boy, there's some good comments here. I can't wait to start reading these. Dean's got some good stuff here.
Yeah, Dean's always got some good comments.
And like I say, guys, feel free to chime in with a comment or an anecdote or something too. We brought you on to harass Kenny, have some fun, but in all seriousness, we certainly absolutely welcome input and feedback and contribution. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I know y'all are on here. Y'all are bloodhound people. So let's get into the nose factor. It's no big secret that the bloodhounds have the most scent receptors at 300 million.
Yep.
300. They've counted all the way up to 350 million actually. But at what point do you hit the point of diminishing returns? So
it's there. For
the
most part of what we do, there's a diminishing return.
Yeah, so I'll say this: how many of you guys know some just rock star tackles out there that would hang with just about anything? There's a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite dog in Oklahoma, and it's no secret, is Jerry Logston's dog Marley. She's a tackle, and she's my heart dog, and she's not my dog, but she's an awesome tracker.
So they only have 125 to 150 million scent receptors.
Yep.
That's half of a bloodhound.
Right.
So once you get above that 125, 150 million scent receptors, that's when you're in the big leagues as far as for tracking breeds. And it does make a difference. I mean, there's no doubt. But according to research, and I'm not claiming that I'm the researcher. I just read this stuff. Other than when you get into some really cold man trailing stuff, that 150 million, once you get past that, it's negligible of how much impact that the actual scent receptors make. So then, you got to look at the other side. A nose is one thing, but then you got the brain factor. That's where the problem comes in with bloodhounds.
No. What? No.
Do what?
Negative. And by the way, I'm going to put this out there. I'm taking note of the comments so I know who I need to start banning from the stream. So just be mindful of that. I'm keeping name, keeping the list and checking it twice. But go ahead, buddy. So the superior brain power. Go on.
I will say, bloodhounds are not dumb, by any means. The problem is their nose outruns their brain.
No, they're meatheads. They're meatheads.
Yeah.
They're meatheads. They're not dumb.
No, they're not. But because of that nose, it gets them into trouble, and it requires a lot more structured reps in training to develop the problem solving and independence.
Well, so just to go on record as saying there is a reason that you see a lot of bloodhounds up for adoption and stuff because people don't understand what they are. They are not, the Clampett's Duke or what's the other, they're not lounging around all day long just waiting for you to feed them. That's not what they are. So you got to know what you're getting, and they're not. I totally agree with you say they're not for everybody, but they're not dumb.
No, just their nose gets them in trouble, and they tone everything out.
And they tend to hold grudges.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Let's hear the story, Jake.
Yeah, let's hear
it. So my wife, she works from home, and Scarlett is our oldest bloodhound. And we got her, she started howling, and we couldn't have that with the wife on the phone working. So she moved the kennel, and the dog really didn't take too kindly to that. So for 2 weeks, you could let her out. She'd go out to the bathroom or go out in the yard and do her thing. And she could pee 300 gallons. And you would open that door and she'd run in and run straight to our bed, on our bed, and pee all over my wife's pillows. It was never mine. It was just my wife's. If my wife went in there to take a shower and left the bathroom door open, she would take her clean clothes and pee all over them. And she would also pee all over her clean towel. And this went on for about 2 weeks. So
and you didn't end up getting a divorce.
Nope.
I absolutely would have been
at that time they absolutely hated each other, and now I'm even lucky to take the dog to the woods. I can't hardly get the dog away from her.
Yeah.
Hey, I can tell you how to solve that because my best tackle was my wife's best friend. And she would always say, if you take him to the woods and you don't bring him back, don't come back. So I got her another tackle so that I could keep him because he was so good. I wasn't going to let that happen.
There's a little one running around.
Yeah. So sticking with that brain factor and problem solving, we'll talk about tackles a little bit. They're small, they're very stubborn. I will say that they are stubborn, but they are excellent problem solvers. And again, I think a lot of that's those short legs. They don't get too far away from the line, and they don't have as far to solve the problem. Then we go to labs, and I'm a big lab fan. I have 2 labs myself. They're probably, I probably recommend them to more new trackers than any other breed. And it's because the high bidability, they're easy to train. They learn really fast, and they're great at home. And honestly, I tell everyone the 90-10 rule. The dog is going to spend 10% of its life tracking and 90% at home.
Yep.
And that's what you have to think about. The Bavarians, Bavarians are they're a quirky breed. I have 2 of them. And one thing I like, they're calm, they're deliberate, they're patient thinkers. And now my one, she hit the ground running. The other one, he took a little longer to mature. And a lot of them we get in for training take a little longer to mature. And Dean's in the comments. Dean could tell you if you want to know about Bavarians and Hanoverians. Dean's a good resource there. Now curs, if you followed me, you know that my main dog is a cur. Has the last 3 main dogs have been. I have Catahoula's and Ladner blackmouth curs. The Ladners just they hold a place in my heart. They're gritty, bold, naturally independent, super smart. But golly, can they get under your skin if you don't work them? They got to be worked. And then we'll get into the bird dogs, the DDs. I've got a DD. I've had some GWPs. I've trained a lot of GSPs. I will not own a GSP, but they're sharp, they're fast, but they need structure so that their smartness doesn't become sloppiness. And you know, you let them get away with that wide rangy bird dog and bracketing, you know, you're going to create a monster. I mean, it's natural, but you need to limit that. And you guys have anything on that?
Because it's in the moment. When you were talking about Bavarians in you know the tendency to breed, Dean commented that most of them are extremely slow to mature. I think we talked about that a little bit. I've never had one, but I've heard that a lot, that they're very slow to mature.
So I've had 3 now. The first one, he was not a good fit for me. You know, where he went to, he was. But Terry Wade, I think, said it the best to me. He said, the one thing about a Bavarian, he said, they grow a leg a year on average. And in 4 years, you finally have a complete dog. A complete dog to start with. And that's what he said. You finally have a complete dog that you can start with.
Oh,
and Terry had, I mean, he's had some fine dogs over the years. You know, and I went down probably the most common breeds that we see here training, and that I'm sure you guys see tracking and going to events is your Teckles, your Bloodhounds, Labs, Curs, you know, your Hounds, your Coon Hounds, your Black and Tans, your Blue Ticks, you know, Bavarians. And then you have your versatile breeds, of course, your DDs, GWPs, and so I kind of run, you know, we kind of touched on a lot of it. But I'm kind of going to run through some of this because, you know, although this doesn't really factor into tendencies, but I think it needs to be touched on, is the training load and the health. You know, so if you guys are listening and, you know, you're wanting to understand more about the breeds, you know, we talked about some style, you know, the Teckles are methodical ground huggers, you know, excel on, you know, cold age lines, you know, they're typically, you know, fairly smooth. And even if they're fast, they're still smooth, but they're fast. One of the downsides is the crittering, and that's that terrier side in them. You know, they're very smart, but they're very stubborn and persistent at the same time. They are outstanding on lead, and they're actually really outstanding off lead. The training load, I kind of say they're moderate. As far as just straight trailing, I think they're probably some of the easiest to train. But it's breaking that crittering is a big thing with them.
Which breed are we talking about again? I got distracted.
This is the Teckles.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then health.
A lot of my friends are having trouble with crittering with their Teckle.
Oh yeah, it can be an issue. Health wise, you know, there's high risk of IVDD, which is back risk, and we actually just had a dog go through this, and it's ugly when it happens. So you want to keep them lean, you know, keep them fit. And so this is where you guys will come in right here. The next one's the Bloodhound.
There you go.
So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, and I do train a lot of Bloodhounds. They're actually, and I'll say this, you guys, you might want to record this. They are one of my favorite breeds to train.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
I'll replay that all the time.
You know, they have that deep nose, classic line holder, nose down, tail up, you know, and just bulldoze through the woods at a slow pace. But no, not always. My Bloodhound was not slow at all the first year, and between the first season and the second season, I said this is fixing to change, and I spent a lot of time and broke that. As far as brains, they've got brains, but they have a lot of independence. They really don't care about you as a teammate. You but you're going to have to work on those checks and resets early on. Because they are so stubborn that once they blow past it, and if they lock into something else, it's a job to get them back. So you want to really stay on that early on. They are, I think they're better on lead, because I do primarily track off lead. One of the reasons I got rid of mine is because off lead just didn't have the stamina for the number of tracks I went on.
I watched an off-lead bloodhound one time, and it was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out so well.
No.
Yeah, I mean, mine found a lot of deer off lead, but I will say Joey McDonald's got one that's like, I don't know, he's different. That dog doesn't know he's a bloodhound. But he's super gritty.
Joey and Ron are the reasons that I have bloodhounds. Actually, I found
Yeah,
them.
Ron's corrupted a lot of people in this nation.
I found them on the internet when I was searching, and the technical waiting list was extremely long, and bloodhounds were my second pick. So after following Joey and Ron for a long time, that's what we ended up settling on. No regret.
I will say the training load on a bloodhound, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say the training load is high. The reason why is because they are meatheads.
I was gonna say the training load is high on the obedience side.
Right. The tracking side is not.
Yeah, it's instinctual for a bloodhound. That's their blood. That's what they've was bred for. Is tracking. So, But yeah, a lot of discipline. You got to maintain that first. Got to get a disciplined dog before you ever start training it. Really, it helps a lot. So.
Yep.
And that's helpful. I haven't done. I mean, she does pretty good, but you tell her to set, she ain't gonna do it. I didn't spend any time on that. Mistake I made. I'll do it better on the next one. But
I will say this too, health wise, your biggest risks are bloat, hips, skin and ear care.
Yep.
And they do have a shorter working lifespan than some of the other breeds out there.
I agree with all of that. In fact, there's a comment about bloat in there, and I've been, So all legitimate things about the breed.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of the bloodhounds we get in for training, they come here overweight. So the first thing we have to do is take weight off of them, and typically they're a lot overweight. And if we start working them and they're that big, there's going to be issues. So we get that weight off of them before we start working them, every day, especially in the summertime. And then, we get them where how they're supposed to look, with a couple of ribs showing, and they're in, that good fighting shape. And then owners will come pick them up and be like, "Oh my gosh, my dog's so skinny." I'm like, "This is what your dog's supposed to be."
Yeah.
And we had one person, I told him, I said, "Look, because their dog," and they knew their dog was way overweight when it came. I said, I'm not going to work this dog till we get this weight off of it. And they said, "Oh, that's fine. That's fine." And when they came and picked it up, the woman, the wife came with them, and she felt like the dog needed more to eat. So on the way home, they stopped and gave the dog 4 cheeseburgers.
There you go. Perfect.
Well, guess what happened? They ended up at the vet with bloat.
Oh no.
Yeah. And of course, at first they were thinking it was me, and their vet's like, "No, this is what happened." Yeah. So that is a risk. So, and I'm just kind of covering some of the more popular breeds that we get in.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Yeah, Brandon Stevens says Fetty is old news. Harley is replacing and forcing. Fetty is Joey McDonald's dog, and that dog, he's something else. So we kind of move on to labs, because labs are they're probably the most popular breed in the nation overall. They're good. Their style is a good balance to mixed and ground. they adapt to pace and condition very well. They're very biddable. They excel at handler guided problem solving. If you notice, handler guided problem solving, because they are lean more dependent on you. That's just how they're bred. They're comfortable on lead, and they really shine off lead. Training load is moderate, and I say moderate because they obedience wise, it doesn't take much for a lab. They're probably one of the easiest to get super obedient. It's the health risk is hips and elbows, weight management, and you got to screen the lines you're getting them from, because they're so popular. There's so many non-working lines out there. Same with bloodhounds. I mean, you guys probably know, if you study the history of bloodhounds, the grittiness was bred out of them intentionally. And there's still some lines out there that have it, but it's harder to come by.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just go real quick through these next ones. Curs, which blackmouth, Catahoula, Lacey. I'll just go ahead and scratch that Lacey from my list. I'll tell you, they're crazy.
That's the first time
crazy.
been mentioned tonight.
Is that because of your new lake that you have at your place?
It's every one of them's like that. It seems like I had a really good Lacey. She was crackhead crazy. I don't think she ever slept. It was I don't know.
There's a dog here named OPEC that is Lacey, and I absolutely adore that dog. She's a monster as far as tracking and recoveries, obedience. She'll do everything. She's an awesome.
Oh yeah, there's some good
dog.
ones out there. But I had one time at I don't know. I think someone had a meth lab in the woods behind my house, and she'd go get in it or something because she never slept.
That's what's wrong with my bloodhound.
Jason Smith says, "Come on, Kitty."
Come on, Kitty. Yeah.
And I don't know if you notice how I read that off blackmouth, Catahoula, Lacey. That's about the order I put them in.
Yeah, I know. I did notice that Lacey was last. I did notice.
Oh man, they're just there's some good Lacey's out there, but golly, they're crazy. But they're fast, rangy, air scenting, lean, gritty. They're strong-willed, independent. They're definitely feral if you don't set some boundaries. You can track with them on lead, of course. I mean, people does, but they really, really excel off lead. But I will say, if you're going to get one of these breeds, I highly recommend starting the training on lead. The training load, I would say, is moderate high. You got to set some rules early on. With daily outlets. Now, health wise, this is probably the biggest reason why I'm such a fan of the curved lines. It's because they are very hardy. They really don't have health issues, and their stamina is through the roof. And where I'm at in this heat, that's what we need.
Yeah.
And of course, you go into your hounds, your coon hounds, and all that. It's pretty similar to a bloodhound. There's definitely some differences. I like a blue tick. I love training blue ticks. They're less handler centric. They'll hunt in spite of you. They don't care about you. Just like a bloodhound, they don't care. On lead, they're not bad. Especially your coonhound breeds, I think they're a little easier handling on lead on average than the bloodhound. But off lead with a lot of acreage, they're going to range. They're going to get on out there. Training load, you got to have a high patience. And you got to teach controlled checks for sure. And then health with them is ears, joints, and manage heat and hydration. Bavarian, They're calling precise, cold nose, methodical workers. They are problem solvers by nature. Brain's deliberate, steady. They thrive when you trust them. They're pretty good on lead. I mean, they're the female I have. She's a dream to work on lead, but they're really excellent off lead as well. Training, I would say, is moderate, but you want to be consistent more than intense. More consistency than less intense. Health wise, you got to be careful. There's some health risks there. Hips, ears, of course, you want to keep them conditioned. The biggest concern right now is the Addisons. So if you get them, make sure you're getting them from the right lines. We talked about the bird dogs already, kind of covered that. Generally they're pretty sound and they're very high drive. The training load is very high. They need a job year round. And then when you get into mixed breeds, obviously mixed breeds can do it, but you don't know what you're getting. It's a wild card. So it's just case by case there. You guys have anything to add? I know I was long winded on that, but I wanted to cover that because I figure I get it. This is probably what I get the most calls about.
Hey, Dylan, can you hear me? What was that story about a blue tick up here with that Brad Westendorf? Do you remember that? You've heard that story.
Yeah. They can't track deer. Only bloodhounds can track deer.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was super busy up here, and Brad lives local to me, and he's got a blue tick, and I handed a track off to Brad, and he called the lady, and she interviewed him and stuff, and asked what kind of dog he had, and he said blue tick, and she come around and immediately said, "Well, you can't track that deer. It's got to be a bloodhound."
Well, of course.
She wouldn't let him come on it.
Brad, that's got Brad pretty riled up. We all know the truth there. That's not the truth, but that was her perception.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a bad thing. In the public's eye, some public think that. Well, the bloodhound's top dog. That's what they got to have. But there's great dogs out there that ain't bloodhounds that track wonderfully.
For sure.
But I think that perception can be out there in some people thinking that. As it was in this case.
Well, it's absolutely out there, Ron, and I'm glad you brought that up because it is a stigma, culturally bred. Because there's been more than one time, when I got out, got to the track. Oh, is that a bloodhound? Yep. All right. Or they'll ask you what kind of dog you got and get excited because it's a bloodhound, and what do you do? So, yeah, she's pretty good. But they're all pretty good. I mean, I'm glad they're excited it's a bloodhound, but I also try to, she's pretty decent, but she's not any better than any of the other breeds we talked about, generally speaking, in terms of ability, like we talked about, but there is a cultural stigma about bloodhounds.
So
the problem I run into here is, I show up with cur dogs and everyone thinks I'm bringing hog dogs.
Yeah.
Because hog hunting with dogs is so big here that, that's all they think. Oh, you brought a hog dog out here? And I said, all right, I'll put it up and then I'll get a tackle out. They're like, what are you going to do with that thing?
So if there was a kryptonite to the bloodhounds, I mean, you other bloodhound handlers, is there something that really set your dog back, like a kryptonite to Superman? In my case, it seems to be a gunshot will scare the crap out of my dog. Loud noises will just freak out my bloodhounds. And I think a lot of people I know say the same thing about a bloodhound, that the loud noises just scare the crap out of them.
My bloodhound was super gun shy. I mean, and I never could get him out of it. It was bad. He would literally shut down. If we had to dispatch, he would shut down.
Oh, but that's the weird thing with Dio. I mean, I never tracked during the gun season or shotgun season up here just for safety. And you know how it goes in my life, how things go. But anyway, We never really tracked during the daylight hours during gun season. We tracked at the night hours, so there's no gunshots. That eliminated that. And the other reason was we didn't want to push the deer in the daylight onto somebody else's property and then they shoot it. But there's times where, like in youth season, we did have a hunter take a gun with us, and Dio would be standing right next to that gun when it went off when we shot the deer, put it down, and didn't phase him at all. He was just so in tune to that deer, staring at that deer, the gunshot, he just canceled it out. But yet, if we was tracking a week before gun season here in Illinois, a lot of guys are sighting in their guns that weekend before, and a gun could go off a mile away and it's got that distinct pop, not real loud, but just a pop from a shotgun a mile away would shut him down on a track.
Yeah.
And it was the damnedest thing, I battled that. I could have maybe worked with it a little bit, but we didn't work around a lot of guns. We just didn't track in the daylight during gun season. So, but it was something I noticed and something that I've heard a lot of bloodhound people say, that their dogs get freaked out by thunder or loud noises.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah, I agree. My dog does not like gunshots at all. Abrupt loud noises like that will startle her.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch on something, because I think I probably see more bloodhounds being rehomed than any other dog on social media. And Ron, I know you touched on this before, and I'm sure Jake, you and Dylan could share some on this. They're not the lazy couch potato dogs that everyone thinks they are they?
No, absolutely not.
No, they you got to give them a job. You got to work them.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of people see that puppy, and they're not much cuter than a bloodhound puppy, and that'll sell them too, but they don't realize how big they get sometimes. But I think you're right. That perception of a porch dog, the Beverly Hillbillies bloodhound laying on the porch, a lot of people think that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd like to say one thing about a bloodhound too, that I have learned in my past experience is, like you talked about earlier, about how hard-headed they really are. So whenever I decided I was going to track, I got a bloodhound off a lady down here by us, didn't do no research, just jumped, got one. Well, she loved to track. She was 6 months old. She absolutely loved it, but I could not get her to listen. She wouldn't listen. Absolutely would not listen. She could be going. I could yell her name 100 times. I could have food, shaking food. She didn't care. If her nose on the ground, she didn't care. Well, it was snowing one day. I let her out. She went into a thicket. I watched deer run out of the thicket. She got in there. I was running over there trying to get her. She ran out in the road. The car hit her. I'd have her put down. And I remember right after that, Ron reached out to me and said, "Hey, I seen what happened. I'd like to offer you a dog whenever that I have another litter." So whenever I went to get one, I'll never forget the words he told me. Whenever I went to get her in the car to take her home, he looked at me. He said, "That dog has a little to learn, but you have a lot to learn." And it always stuck with me, because one thing I always pounded in her head whenever I got my one I have now, one of the ones I have now, is obedience. Like, I worked and worked for recall. I wanted her to sit. I wanted her to stay whenever I wanted to. And I worked on that all the way till I felt comfortable, till I started tracking with her. And I feel like it made a world of difference. Like, I really do, because we had a connection and that bond where she listened by obedience more before we even started pounding tracking. And I think that's one thing with a bloodhound and people getting them, that they're so in denial of, they're not lazy. They're high-strung dogs. They're go, go, go. And they don't do the discipline because they're too mindset on, I want to track deer. And they push tracking and push tracking until their dog just doesn't have that obedience that it needs.
Yeah, I tell everyone that when they contact us about training before they even get the dog, that I love it when they do that. They say, what do you want me to do tracking wise? I said, absolutely nothing. Spend the first 6 months of its life working on obedience, and then we'll take care of the tracking.
And the thing of it is, when you're working on that obedience, you're inadvertently building the bond too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So it goes. There's two things you're accomplishing there early on, and they're both very beneficial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Dylan, I got to tell you, Dylan, I appreciate you sharing that story. and Ron, that's a stand-up thing to do, but that is going to ring in my head right now. That is, every once in a while you'll hear something that just sticks with you and jumps out, and that's going to be one of them, Dylan. Ron telling you that dog's got a little to learn, you got a lot to learn. I absolutely love that. And it is so true. I got a bloodhound largely out of naivety. That the scent receptor thing, man. They're the only testimony or their findings are the only animals whose findings are admitted in the court of law. That had me. They're derpy and they're goofy and they're obnoxious. I like that anyway. So and they can be very affectionate. And I like that. So it was, but I really fell victim to the scent receptor thing. And I'll probably get another bloodhound. I truly probably will, because I really do like them. And I want to talk a little bit more as we get through this with you guys about some stuff. Just
I'll shed some light on the real breed that you need.
Okay. I'll be, no, Dylan, I do appreciate you sharing that. And that's one thing that I have realized, because I did the same thing as I'll say the first time tracker. She's my first dog. We've come on awful long ways in our going into 4 years. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, and I'm just trying to build the experience with it. And we're getting there. I'm going on a decent number of tracks. So, I'm going to approach it differently with the obedience. I've never been much of an obedience guy with my dogs, just because it's just because I'm lazy. I'm going to change that the next time.
Well, one thing that a lot of people doesn't realize, the dog owns the nose, but we own the brakes.
Yeah.
If you don't teach obedience, you don't have brake control.
Yeah. It's just like a horse. I trained several horses in my day, because I've rode bulls. I done all that when in rodeo, and it's just like a horse. If you don't take that horse and you don't work that horse in a round pen and work ground manners, that horse is going to think that it's in charge of you. It's never going to know that you're in charge. And it's no different to me than whenever I started working with the dog and started doing that you have to let them know that you're in charge. And I feel like whenever they know you're in charge like that, and then you're going on tracking, like they're going to listen. If you pull them off and they know that you want them to sit and stop or whatever, you need to get back on. Like, I feel like that me and her has a better bond of that, because she is very independent in the woods, but also I feel like she knows I'm her master. She knows whenever I say her name, it's to come back to me. And I just think that's something that I do. I feel like a lot of people, they overlook is the obedience for tracking more than just tracking. Like, tracking comes natural to them. I feel like a lot if they just had the obedience and that bond, personally, to me.
Yeah, you got to remember, a dog thinks through its nose. That's how they think.
That's how they engage the world. Yes.
So it is natural.
And it's that pack mentality. That dogs live in a pack. You are the alpha. You got to establish that you're the boss.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's
fun
I definitely wanted to touch on that common misconception of bloodhounds. And
yeah, you have to.
I typically see two types of people that bring dogs to me. The family dog that's more of a couch dog, lives in the house, and the kennel dogs. So this is something I kind of put together whenever people ask me. I'll ask them, hey, where's this dog going to spend the majority of its time? Because there's certain dogs that just do not do well in a kennel. Like labs, teckles, many of the bird dogs, they do fit the family life, as long as they're mentally worked. What I found, the dogs that tend to thrive a little better in kennels are bloodhounds, coonhounds, curs, the Bavarians. They thrive in space, but they do need some routine and daily outlets. So just keep that in mind. Like beagles, they do good in kennels, depending, not saying they can't be house dogs, but you need to consider that where that dog is going to spend a lot of its time when you're choosing a breed that you're going to track with. Because again, most people only tracks 3 to 4 months out of the year, and the majority of the people it's weekends. So that's that 90-10 rule for the average tracker.
So we got on your kennel topic, we got Creole as a rescue when he was 6.5 months old. There was a guy that posted him on Facebook saying he couldn't keep him. Super nice kid, and Briar was about 4 months old at that time. So I told my husband, I said, somebody's giving away this dog. They can't keep him. Look how cute he is, and he could be your dog. That was the original intention, was for Creole to be my husband's dog. And we went and picked him up, and he did well, as far as staying around the house with his recall and stuff like that, but he didn't really have any formalized training. So what I didn't know when I got him was he is a digger. He digs everywhere. So I originally had him in with Briar. I'm in Briar's doghouse right now, you guys see, but it's pretty large doghouse. It used to be a playhouse like for children, and I turned it into her doghouse. But I used to have him in here with her, and he was just consistently digging out. So we actually had to modify a separate kennel for him with hog panels underneath it until we can get the nice concrete ones like I'd like to have. And he has like a layer of hog panels and a layer of dirt under his kennel so that he cannot dig out, because that's like his biggest flaw, other than a little couple of quirks that he has. I tell everybody he is adopted. It's not something I'm proud of. All of my bloodhounds are adopted. That somebody called and said, "Hey, I'm getting rid of this dog. Do you want it?" Except for Briar. Briar was a planned intent, and the other three, over the years, just people call and say, "Hey, I heard you have bloodhounds. Do you want this dog?" So the Creole, he's turned into a great tracker. He's probably my best tracking dog as far as consistency and want to. But like you were saying about the kennels, my other ones are great in kennels, but if you get one that digs, Creole can dig a trench all the way around his kennel, even with the hog panels. So it's
I'll tell you, you were talking about the concrete,
deal, but he's that's the only thing that we could figure out besides doing concrete, and we just haven't made it that far yet.
Well, yeah, and I know this is kind of off topic, but speaking of concrete, we have some concrete kennels, but this year I built some with composite deck boards, and let me tell you, it's way better than concrete.
I'm not looking for that.
Oh, it cleans so much easier. Oh, you don't have to seal it all the time. So definitely look into that.
So, Kenny, anything else specific to the topic or breed you wanted to go on before I start rabbit trailing us?
No, I wanted to touch on that, especially the talking about the home life for bloodhounds, since we have so many bloodhound people here. And
well, and it truly is the right thing to do. I pick and tease because I absolutely love my bloodhound to death, and but it would be a disservice if we weren't truly honest about what they are. You just need to know. God dang it! You need to know what they are and know what you're in for. With any breed, you need to know that.
Well, like Chuck Darby said right here, that's what most smart people do, Kenny, is when they get a bloodhound, they give them away.
Well, all right, Chuck, you know what? You're
Thank God I'm not smart.
Chuck Darby. Got it. Well, why don't we hit? Well, hold on. Before we hit comments, Jake or Dylan, you have anything else? Anything you'd like to comment on? Question, clarify about any of it?
Go ahead, Jake.
I don't really.
You're a man of many words.
Yeah, we're not gonna tell fibs here, Dylan.
Yeah. But Dylan, you're training a brand new puppy right now.
Yeah, me and Jake both have a Jewel
So is Jake.
2.0. Yeah, I got a female. He got a male. I was going to get a male, and he convinced me to get a female because he wanted a male. So we named him Bonnie and Clyde. So there we
Bonnie
are.
and Clyde out of 2.0. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, let me tell you, that one that Ron had in Michigan, I probably could have brought that one home.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. I got in trouble. I sent a picture to my wife, and boy, I was trying, Ron. No, I know that one was spoken for, but and then I floated Raven by her, the one that Dylan took. And so check this out. So I sent her the picture of Raven before Dylan claimed her. You know what her response was? I don't like the black ones. Wait a second. That's not a no. That's just she doesn't like the black colored ones. So a liver one, that's okay. That wasn't a no. You can't. I don't like another dog. It's like I don't like the color of that dog.
Hey, so I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because that's one of the issues I had with my bloodhound. Is he was a saddleback, black saddleback.
Yep.
And being here in Florida, that's not good.
Oh,
and
yeah. The heat. No. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are in one of these warmer climate areas and you are considering a bloodhound, get a liver one.
And that's
or red even.
That is exactly why we went with what we did. I wanted a black and tan, but we are a very big outside family. We've got a cabin on the river. We're out on the boat all summer long. And that the black being in heat, we went with the lighter color just for that.
Yep.
Good plan.
I have 3 saddlebacks and 1 liver, and in my experience, I don't being in Oklahoma. It's hot and humid, but maybe not so much as where y'all are at. But my liver overheats faster than all 3 of the saddlebacks. That's just my experience. I haven't had a black and solid black like Dio, but the liver that I have, Annie, she definitely gets hotter faster than all 3 of the other dogs.
You come down here, bow season would be in the 90s with about 90% humidity.
That's what we start our bow season at. it'll be upper 80s, lower 90s when we start October 1st.
Yeah, but what's your humidity?
Maybe not quite 90% humidity, but we're definitely above 50, 60 most of the time, if not more than that. Just depending on.
And in fact, my phone was blowing up. South Florida's already in. They've been in for a couple of weeks now. So you can imagine down there. Whew, it's 110 degrees and not fun.
And I don't want to switch topics. And Kenny, this is something we'll have to think about how we could frame it. But the climactic impact on the dog, not the trail, but the dog in humidity is terrible for them. Even cool humidity is really hard on them. Can be, so being, selecting a dog, and it is interesting regional, my, naive brain kind of classifies it like this, the South, particularly Southeast, even Southwest, it's Curs and Lacey's, largely. Okay. Then you start to move north Midwest, that central Midwest. Then you get into, you start seeing a lot more bloodhounds and in labs and things like that. Then you get a little more in the Northeast, and then that's just like Teckle Haven over there. It's what it seems like to me. Now, obviously, there's all of those breeds everywhere, but if you think about breed density, that's how my mind frames all that. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's just how it seems like to me. Because when Ron, Jake, and Dylan, when we were in, at the Illinois event, it was freaking bloodhound fest. Everybody had a bloodhound behind every tree there.
That's because of Ron.
Everybody's smart.
Everybody's smart. That's what I'm saying.
No. So what I was going to say is, Go ahead.
You need a big dog
No.
to go toe to toe with
No,
the big
sorry.
deer we have here.
I
Go
do
ahead,
have
Dylan.
I do have a question I would like to bring up and ask you guys' opinion. Maybe this will help other people listening. But if we're talking about countries and South and all that, so like where I'm at, it's like I said earlier, it's hilly. Like you're not going to go 100 yards without going up hills. So with Teckles and small dogs like that, do they struggle harder in more hilly conditions than a larger dog? Whenever you're going to choose a dog and you have a lot of hill country or mountain country, would a bigger dog like a bloodhound, would they strive more than a smaller dog?
I'll say I haven't tracked a lot in the mountains, but I have tested some dogs in the mountains, and they will blow your minds what they're capable of.
I just wasn't sure.
I will say, when you get in some of those areas where you have some steep drop offs, that you don't have a choice, you got to go. I would think I would want a longer legged dog, or the advantage to a Teckle is you could throw it in the back pocket of a vest and get down it. And not be drugged down it.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I do want to say, Matt, you brought something up about how you're in the South. There's more cur dogs and Lacey's, and I just want to touch on that a little bit. The reason behind that, it's not just about the heat and the stamina. The South has been tracking wounded game for a long time, typically in most cases longer than other states. Mm-hmm. So they have got the wisdom and experience to know what the superior breeds are.
Oh my God! Is there something wrong with you, Mike?
God, I don't hear him.
I can't hear. Yeah, I don't know. Let's start talking nonsense.
Yeah, you got to admit that's pretty good, though.
You had me. You had me. But that's a good point, Dylan. Talking about terrain, and it's not just necessarily for the short-legged dogs. Hills and valleys, but swamps and in drainage ditches, those shorter dogs can struggle with. But boy, I tell you, though, they are the most determined little freaking snots I've ever seen. I have a ton of them, but I have some friends that have them. I'm like, God dang, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you, every time we get a new dog in, or I'll call John and say, hey, we got a new dog in the books, and I tell him it's a Teckle. He is like a kid in a candy store. He loves it because, man, they're just so fun to work. They really are.
And I know when I first started listening to you guys, before you even asked me to join the team, is you had Teckles up there as probably your number one.
Yeah, and I mean that's honestly, I don't. Out of my personal dogs, that's not the one I go to first. I don't know. I probably should, to be honest with you, because I've got some really good ones. But it's hard for me not to pull that cur dog out. That working that bloodhound as long as I did, that stubbornness is worn off on me, and I just
because you know what right looks like. I mean, that's what happened with greatness. You just drawn to it, so I get it.
That's why.
Hold on, there you go. What?
That's why I pull the cur out first.
Let's hit some comments. And then I do want. I don't want to keep us here all night, but I do. In all seriousness, I would like to ask some questions of my bloodhound brethren, in serious based questions, not mocking. So, Kenny, if you see one, just go ahead and grab it or tell me. But I'm just going to kind of walk down and pick out some good ones. Travis Conner is wrong when he says you can stack the podcast, but that doesn't change the fact that labs are the best. Well, that doesn't change the fact that you're wrong.
What about Chuck right below
it? So I was correct when I said that you were trying to get backup. What's that?
So about you getting everyone on here for backup.
Oh. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and then Landon, I hear you, Landon. I think I called this out. Landon says, "Cur Dog Mafia has your back, Kenny." Okay. And then my buddy Dale, yeah, funny. You're darn right it is, buddy, because we know what right looks like. Thanks for chiming in, Dale.
You got to hit Ryan Haley's right there.
Oh, I'm going to. I'm going to. Where is it? Right after, yeah, right here, right after some Mullins dog training something. I don't know. Matt plays dirty. No. So Ryan, yes, you are going on my list. Do all bloodhound owners dance with their bloodhounds, or is that only Matt asking for a friend?
It's absolutely everyone. Absolutely everyone.
Absolutely everyone. In fact, there's a whole Facebook page for it, isn't there, Dylan? Facebook group. So King of the Hill.
That person has never met me.
King of the Hill. You know, everybody knows King of the Hill and Lady Bird. And there's an episode where Hank Hill was dog dancing with Lady Bird. So freaking embarrassing just to watch it. My wife conspired with one each Kenny Mullins and company at the Michigan event. Ron saw it and had a picture of me, you know, some poorly rendered picture of me in a tutu dancing with my dog. And Ryan was there to see it.
Hey, credit goes to oh, who did that?
Calvin.
It was Calvin, yeah.
Calvin did it, but
goes
no,
to Calvin.
not off. It's called guilt by association. Let's see. All of them wear pink tutus at Mullins Dog Training, specializing in dogs for wounded game and weirdos. Megan, you got a shout out from Perry. Yay, Megan.
Thanks, Gary. Oklahoma.
You know, the thing is, Matt, let me ask you this. If you're pulling your farm tractor, are you going to drive that Toyota, or are you going to hook a real truck up to it?
I don't even know where you're going. That didn't make sense. I'm not talking farming, Kenny.
Well, no. I mean, you going to pull it with that Toyota, or are you going to hook a truck to it?
No, I'm going to hook a truck to it.
That's why I run Cur Dogs.
You were
right tool for the job.
Get it. Let's see here. There's lots of good comments, guys. If I'm not grabbing your comment, please. It's not personal. It's just there's a lot of stuff here. I don't understand why people.
Dean's got some good comments.
Yeah, I'm kind of scrolling because I want to get to Dean's because you're right. Each dog has. Yeah, Perry's right. Each dog has its own unique advantages, and he's right. And this is a big bloodhound thing here, very intentionally, very fun. But we all have the breeds we prefer, but they're, you know, absolutely welcome all breeds.
Oh yeah, except Lacey's.
Oh, let's see.
I got two in the kennels right now. So.
Yeah. Chuck Darby. My Catahoula is tracked a 4-day-old. So why would you need a bloodhound? Well, Chuck, we've covered this because they're the best. A measly old 4 days. I mean, come on. Child's play, Chuck.
He must have been out there for 4 days. Mine would have found his first day.
Yeah, I think you meant to say it took me 4 days for my Catahoula to find it. Chuck, we're kidding, buddy. We're totally kidding. Yeah, Mike Algiar. I spent almost 5 years tracking on lead with bloodhounds. I'm just glad I'm off lead tracker now because I'm not sure I would be able to handle this doggo on lead. That's a breed I don't know much about, but they look wicked. That's not what we mentioned. They usually mostly use those for catching, don't they?
They'll trail. They'll trail.
Sure they will.
Lindsay's Dogo Frank tracks, and she's got him on hogs now too. But that dog is he's been to Tracklahoma a couple of times with her, and he is a phenomenal all around dog. 100% a fan of those dogs. Just based
What's
off
the
of
temperament of a dogo, real quick?
So I've owned 3 of them, and I'm just going to be honest, they're not the right dog for me.
No, man, that's okay.
And I did test. I did judge Mike's dogs or Mike's dogo and Alex Hood. I judged Alex Hood's dogs, and both are awesome. I got a dogo from Alex that very methodical. They could trail. The biggest reason I'm not a fan is I just skin issues. That white coat, you got to be careful. A lot of them's allergic to chicken, fish. I mean, it's like, what do you feed these things and not have this skin issue? It just, again, not every breed's for everyone, but they can track.
But I mean, what's their temperament like? Just in general, are they standoffish? Are they cranky?
No. They're pretty friendly dog for the most part. I did deal with a little bit of dog aggression. Not as bad as a York Terrier or a Lacey dog aggressive, but I did deal with some. The other downside is they are big, and something does go wrong, that's a lot of dog.
Aren't they just pure freaking muscle too? I'm not really familiar with them.
They are. They're big, lean, muscular.
Cool looking. So let's grab Dean's. I think you can more accurately categorize with males and females as maybe, and I think he's replying here, as maybe why can't I read? I think you can more accurately categorize that with males and females as well, maybe even more so than with breeds. I have a pile of young male labs who are extremely tolerant or resilient, if you will, on controlling, more resilient, if you will, on controlling, handling. I would say females in general are more concerned with what you think.
I agree with that, especially in the lab breed.
Yeah, because you see that discussion come up a lot in Facebook comments or group posts. Hey, what's better at tracking, a male or a female, and all of that.
I prefer a female.
I do too, but it's not have anything to do with their tracking tendency. I just don't want a dog peeing on everything. I'm tired of my last male dog peed on everything, and it just drove me nuts. And I think in general, I have this belief, whether it's true or not, that male owner and female dogs bond better than, and it's not absolutely the case, but I just like females.
Well, I will say this, typically all the males that I have, they're slower to mature, just like us. They have that alpha, dominant mentality, just like us. But once you get through that defiant teenage stage, typically the males excel.
Okay. Let's look at Randy's. I'll put my older Lacey in the top 5 I've had for recovering a deer off lead, but I realized that she will never pass an off lead test because she gets way off the track regularly, but always comes back to it. That's a real cutter and a slasher right there.
It's because they're crazy.
Because they're crazy.
Well, that one here now, golly, he will burn down a mock track. But I don't know if I'm gonna get bit or not every time I go get him out.
So here's what about if your track was such an off the wall cross that you don't know how to explain to people why my dog is the way he is and why I do things with him differently than my others? Kristen Howard says.
Well, the owner's pretty off the wall cross. Goes hand in hand.
Really, Kristen. Okay.
Yeah, I know, Kristen.
Yeah.
No,
I will tell you, who cares? I don't know. You know, and I'm glad you know Kristen, but I don't know why. Why is my dog doing that? Because that's what my dog is doing. That is how my dog does it. You know. What are your questions? You know. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Brad. How do you? Oh my goodness, Brad, send me a comment in phonetics for your last name. My female could care less what I think. I would tell you.
So Brad, he put a video out. Brad is he's admin on the Arkansas Blood Trail Network. He put a video out today, you know, basically telling people about the net, you know, their network and basically telling them what the rules are. And he said, you know, basically, how do you word it? We're an imperfect group for imperfect situations or something. I'm gonna have to go back and find it. Golly, it was good. I'm gonna share that with you guys.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it. Ethan says recognizing on task and off task and influencing motivation is the name of the game, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm all about on task. I've really become. Another one from Dean. And for those who don't know, Dean is a trainer in Wisconsin. So, you know, Kenny's a trainer, Dean's a trainer, Ethan's a trainer. These guys know what they're talking about. I also find that hounds in general will circle back towards where they lost the scent. Bird dogs, as a whole or in general, will search out beyond where they lost the scent. And you more so have to teach them that the scent is oftentimes back where they had it and not out in front of them. Just want to genetically predispose, just what they're genetically predisposed to do. Yeah, cast and retrieve. Yeah, it's funny, Dean, that you bring that up. You know, I know you spoke with Brian here in Michigan when he got his lab from Doug, and when Seeger was young, I remember him talking about because you know he had a bloodhound and he got the lab. I remember him saying that he talked to Dean about the lab tracking style because he's having you know, just he was bolting when he would get out of odor. And Dean, and I'm glad you chimed in because as Brian said, that's exactly what you told him.
All right, I just found it. Brad said imperfect page. This is an imperfect page for imperfect people. And I said, boy, is that not perfect for a tracking page?
There you have it. Independence, another one from Dean. Independence per se, I feel, is a product of drive, which I don't believe you can put into a dog, but you sure as hell can take it out of them. See, now
absolutely.
Yeah, that isn't that.
Yeah, and I will say this, you know, if you built drive into a dog, they had it to begin with. It was suppressed. But give me a super high drive dog that is just bouncing off the walls and let me harness it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Branson Guthrie, my sister's got some accidental bloodles that I'm really interested to see how they will turn out. I will bet you they will be fantastic.
Because they got poodle in them.
Because they got they're going to be weird looking tracking machines because they got the superior intellect of a bloodhound combined with the high intellect of a poodle. It might be hypoallergenic. You never know. In all seriousness,
In other words, Matt wants one, Branson. I'll send you his address.
Okay.
There's going to be a dog shipper here at midnight if you can get the dog here.
Yeah.
There really is. We got a dog being dropped off at midnight.
Yeah, I believe you. Perry Broyles wants you to preach whatever nonsense you were babbling, Kenny, at the moment. Kenny, you seen anything you want to grab, or anybody else? If you see in the comments, and then what we'll do is we'll get into let's grab Brad. This is important. We talk about off lead. When running off lead, you need to know what your dog is going to do on a live one. Cur dogs more than likely will have a better baying instinct. They're also more athletic and quick. Yeah.
Yep. And there was another one, I think you passed it, where Brad said, also just like knowing how to handle dog a lead, off lead needs to learn what they are looking at, what the dog is doing on a GPS. And I will say there's an art to that. I mean, I can read a dog as good off lead looking at my handheld as I can on lead. Probably better because I'm not getting in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Tom, Mike again. So let's Kenny, peruse the comments while I talk to my bloodhound brother in a minute here. So guys, I'm curious, in all seriousness, we talked about, Jake, you said that you've seen a bloodhound track off lead and it was a disaster. I track off lead, and I don't think we're anything close to a disaster. And I'm not suggesting that you're saying that you're projecting all bloodhounds off lead are disasters. But I'm curious.
The one that I saw, ignore that. The one that I saw, it was not an actual off lead.
Yeah, it just got away.
It was a dog that went off lead that wasn't supposed to be off lead.
Are you talking about Ron?
Huh?
What's that?
Yeah, the minute you said that, Jake, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Ron and I had a similar experience. But my dog just wasn't gone quite as long as Emmett. And we're both super grateful we got him back. But
no doubt.
That's a bloodhound trait.
That episode has sold a bunch of these.
Yeah, it has. Yes.
That episode has sold a bunch of these.
Yep.
Well, that's a bloodhound trait, and honestly, that is the main reason I got rid of my bloodhound. I don't. Golly, I hated that crap. He'd run off and be gone for 2 days, and
yeah, that would be annoying, and for sure. But I wanted to ask you guys, if we talking about the problem solving tendencies and all of that, I have become really my big focus and big point of interest right now at this phase. I'm in this problem solving phase of tracking and training, where to me, I don't want to train the dog to trail a deer. I want to, because they're going to do that. I want to solve to borrow Kenny's expression, solve a track. Well, so we're off lead, and I think my dog, for the experience we have, she does really good at problem solving. She's very committed to the task, and except for that time I kept screwing her up on my finish test, Kenny. But that aside, she's very systematic in the way she approaches her problem solving. And, when it's very common for her, Ron, you kind of saw it at the Michigan event when I was showing some of during my presentation and things. And I'm really fascinated by that. And I'm just curious. I mean, how do you guys as bloodhounds, and this is not a bloodhound, this is a very serious, sincere conversation now. How do handle their problem solving when they, pass the 90? Do they circle? How are you guys' dogs managing that? And I know you're on lead, and it's a little different than being able to stand back, lean on a tree, and say, "Oh yeah," and then watch the Garmin and see exactly the pattern and see exactly what she's doing. But I'm just curious how you guys as bloodhounds do approach problem solving.
So Jewel, in her case, if she overshoots and she'll go a ways, but you'll know she's frantic. She'll become frantic and she'll work herself back to that last spot and figure it out. But it just you just sit and observe and watch her do it. So easy to read. All dogs are different. They're some circle back, and stuff like that. But it just depends on the dog. But with her, that's the way it is. When she's off, she knows kind of when she messes up, and she'll figure it out. She problem solves really well.
But she gets a little bit frantic when she's
Yeah,
out of
you, you
odor.
you can see that frantic in her. You'll see the change. You'll see she's got like
Yeah.
and it's that's the way she does it. That's what I see in her.
What Ron's not saying is he has spent so much time with that dog to be able to get it to that point. It takes at least a couple of years on
Oh,
a
yeah.
bloodhound.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
No. Damn it. Yeah. Problem so now, in all seriousness, although I know that was a not so veiled shot at bloodhounds, but in all seriousness, the trailing comes natural. The problem solving is something. Trailing comes natural in the sense of their ability to smell the odor and want to track it, right? And you don't teach a dog to sniff odor and follow it. They just kind of do that. But what we're teaching is a problem solving, and that's what can be developed over time. After year one, and the dog understands, let's just say year one, the dog understands its job is to follow the odor that you're putting it on. It does that. You're not teaching it that anymore. But what you are teaching it is its problem solve, how to you develop its problem solving skills, and then your ability to read that dog and learn that dog exactly what Ron said. You can tell when she's out. Well, I can too, and that's what's being built. The dog's ability. That's what I think. The dogs developing their problem solving skills after year one, and then your ability to read it and be in tune with it.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. What about you, Dylan? How does your bloodhound problem solve?
She was real good on mock tracks about circling back. If I know she missed, she will circle back. But whenever we started finding several deer, I noticed if she got off, it was kind of like what Ron said with Jewel. She would get real frantic-y, just kind of grid search mode, just go kind of nuts with just back and forth with her head up. She was not fixing herself because I will admit, she wasn't even 2 years old. So I'm hoping that will come with maturity, but I would immediately recognize it and I would be able to take her back to where I knew she was on and give her a restart. And I mean, I may have to do it a couple times to make sure, but I could pretty well tell whenever she would get off, she would just kind of go just real, she'd pull super hard. She'd just get real nervous and just kind of her head going everywhere, bracketing like crazy. And like she was trying to find it. And she might have if I'd have let her work, a long time. But a lot of times I'd let her work a little bit. And if I feel like she just couldn't figure it out, I would instantly pull her off of that and go back. I mean, that was kind of how she done a lot.
Yeah.
And I will say.
Oh, go ahead, Kenny. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the problem solving side, typically the reason that takes longer, especially with bloodhounds, is because of our training tactics. And Matt, I know you can appreciate this, but everyone looking for what you say, that sexy line. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're always having that sexy overlay line every time you train, you're not sharpening the dog's problem solving skills.
Right.
So even though I'll rag on bloodhounds a lot, typically it's a result of the training. Same thing with dependency and checking in.
Yeah. I will say she was super good on it until she started finding deer, and then she kind of she don't really like running practice lines right now. She's just she's 2 years old, and I mean, she found a pile of deer last year, and I mean, she kind of like what Megan said earlier. Like, my dog is real bad about brackens. She sent checks. She's hard to handle. Like, she's hard to read on her practice line. Like, I will be blown away if I ever pass and get another ribbon with that dog. I hate to say it like that, but I guarantee we can go out and find a deer. So that's just how
Sounds
she
like
is.
sounds like you're not challenging the dog enough.
Well, maybe not.
Honest.
I don't know.
And she's just kind of bored with the line. I mean, that could be.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake? How does your bloodhound problem solve?
Scarlett, first, she's a really hard dog to read. She will not do the same thing twice. Once you think you got one little key, she'll be completely off in left field doing the same thing. And there's been several people that have been behind us trying to help kind of get information or trying to get feedback, and it's always the same thing. But I do notice whenever she's really, deep into problem solving, she is quadruple checking every single leaf, every single twig. I mean, everything around her. Her nose is on it, and she's very, very slowly taking her time, just kind of examining everything.
So probably the best thing I did problem solving wise with my bloodhound was giving him away. That solved the problem.
Yeah. If I wanted to go squirrel hunting, I'd get a cur dog too.
Megan, what about Creole? What's his problem solving look like?
Creole's problem solving is kind of like a bull in a china closet. He'll just push through until he gets to the next little bit of scent. He's not real methodical. He is very much he's on the line until he can find another line. So sometimes that's a little bit more messy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with cutting horses. I grew up in horses and rodeo, and I work for a lot of cutting horse trainers. But when the horses kind of try to keep the cow away from the herd, going zigzag back and forth, that's Creole's. If he's doing that in the leaves, I know 100% we need to go back to a different spot because he is stuck. Briar
Panic mode.
Briar will go out and cast, and she will make a huge. I run a 30-foot line on both my dogs, but Briar will make a circle all the way back around me and come back until she has broken out of the scent gap or scent pool or whatever that she's trying to work through. If she comes directly to me, I know we're completely off the mark. If she passes me and ignores me and goes back behind me, I know she's trying to work through, like I said, a scent pool or some type of scent gap that she's in and get back on the line. But Creole is, like I said, he's adopted, so he's a little bit harder to read, and he's very much point A to point B. Like, he wants to get there as fast as possible with, he don't mess around and try and problem solve and put puzzles together. He just wants the full picture at the end, and he gets there as fast as he can. We are working on that. But, it's effective for him. He does a great job. But Briar, if she's out of the scent line or is looking for scent, she goes straight up, head in the air, and circles until she gets back onto something. I watch for her head snap. That's kind of her tell with her. She'll circle with her head up in the air, and as soon as she snaps it back to the ground, I know that that's somewhere where we need to go, and I let her go that way. But again, they're both completely different, and I think that's what I like about them so much is their individuality. I've learned a lot because they're so different as a handler. Mm-hmm. We've watched a lot of other dogs. I have a friend that he runs a bull mastiff, Samson, and we've got some people that started tracking in our area that have collies, basset hounds, a Vizsla. We've got a wide variety, and I've been super lucky because we're all so close. I get to watch a lot of these different breeds, and it is really, really interesting to see how they all track and work through those puzzles like that.
The problem with seeing so many different breeds track is now you want one of every one of them.
No.
Now you mentioned Vizsla. That's something that I've really been considering because they are so fast, and being able to track off, they can outrun a live deer.
She is quick. She's she skipped straight over her UBT1 and just went straight to UBT2. She's a real solid little dog. And you know, like I said, the Basset Hounds, you know, they're neat because it's like a bloodhound, but you know, in a tiny version. So that's been
they got the same
really cool. You know, you don't have to worry about them dragging you. I guess like I've been drugged by Creole and it was not a good experience. So he's worked through a lot of his adolescent issues, and like I said, he's 4 now. So I think this year will really be his year that he's really going to take off and shine as far as maturity and finding a lot of deer this year. So
you want to talk about some crazy signs of a dog on track and off track? We trained this Basset Hound for a guy from Texas, and you would know that dog was on track because he would step on his ears. The minute he got off the track, he would no longer step on his ears. It was the craziest thing.
Yeah,
I kid you not. It's hilarious. I'll find the videos. I'll post the videos as soon as I find them.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I would tell you that you know, as far as Brew goes, I think there's been a couple of things, Dylan. You talked about you know, your dog is still relatively young at 2 years old, and when she just turned 4 the other day, Sunday, I think. Yeah, Sunday she turned 4, and at 2 years old, her problem solving was, you know, I could still see it a little bit, but it wasn't as methodical and purposeful as it is now. You know, and I attributed that to a couple of things. One is just maturity, I think, and 2 is, you know, removing myself from the equation by going off lead. You know, the classic dope on the end of a rope thing, and also I'll attribute it to 3 things. I mentioned it earlier, you know, having a better understanding of the science of scent and scent theory and what it's doing to allow the dog to have the patience to allow the dog to work through it. Just because I know the line is here and the dog is 30 yards over here doesn't mean the dog's not an odor, you know. And as she's gotten older, I've been able to tell the difference, because I used to call it helter-skelter tracking. When she would lose the line, it became helter-skelter. She was zooming all over the place. There was seemed like there was no real rhyme nor rhythm to her method. But now it's much different. You know, and again, I'm not hooked up. Very rarely am I hooked up anymore. But she'll overrun it. I can tell when she's out of odor. You know, the head comes up, she turns, and then her search, I can tell the difference between search mode and then working through odor. You know, like a scent pool or a grid search or something. You know, it's pretty distinct. I can't explain it, but I can see it. In her problem solving is relatively systematic, because she'll do a loop this way. I think Ethan calls them bread knots. I call them clover leaf. Then she'll do a loop this way. Then she'll take a bigger loop this way, some version of this, until she cuts the line. And Jake, you talked about your dog smelling every goddamn leaf. Holy crap! Yeah, particularly when it's dry, she is almost obnoxiously double checking herself. You know, I've caught a couple of plowed fields, and oh my God, it took her forever to want to move off from one spot. She'd go back to that spot. She'd come back to that spot, just constantly double checking. She finally works it out, but patience is key. But it's just, I don't remember what it was in our conversation here, Kenny, when you were walking through it, that talked about, you know, you were talking about the problem solving methods, and I was just curious how the other bloodhounds do it, because I think my dog does a pretty good job of it for the most part, you know.
Well, it sounds like Megan's got the problem solving thing figured out. Get
I
that
don't know
Catahoula.
if that's 100%, but I feel like
Oh, Catahoula, yeah, you got a Catahoula, yeah.
the Catahoula. That's not my dog. That's my daughter's dog. I'm just helping.
It's okay. It's okay that you don't want to admit it as long as you have one. That's all that matters.
Right now,
you take a walk with a paper bag over your head.
Man, when I went to college, I bought my dad a Catahoula, and his name was Bodie, and he was an amazing dog, and he passed away about 4 years ago. And I always said I would never have another one. That dog would do anything that we ever asked him to do, hands down, no issues, loyal to a fault. And I always just told myself, there'll never be another Bodie. And then here comes Zoe saying, "Look at these puppies. Can I have one?" So, my mom heart broken, and I got it for her. But he's doing good. We're working on obedience and recall and collar training with him right now. So maybe next year we'll get him on some time in the woods with actual deer. But we're just kind of, like I said, it's more of an experiment than anything. But he's a good pup. He's chill sometimes. Kind of like an alligator sometimes. So.
Man, there's still a bunch of good comments here. But,
yeah, I was gonna say John Keslick up there, I think is where we left off. Where you see, he was asking what are some of the sex differences. My female labs seem to be more eager to please, easier to train, more obedient, and better for my type. Yeah, there you go. Better for my type of work for me, especially on lead. My male labs were way tougher and had more fight in them. I bet they would have been excellent off lead, and that's right. I mean, but overall, typically labs are super biddable. I mean, you can. It doesn't take much to get them molded to what you want.
Yeah,
but you're spot on. The females are typically, they want to please you more, unlike the human virgins.
Fired. Shots fired.
Let's see here. You see another one you want to snag, Kenny? That we got into some problems. I mean, we're at 2 hours and 23 minutes right now, so I don't want to hold our guests hostage. But so
Bradley Whitmount right there. He says, I'm having trouble with my dog returning to me to check in while on trail. Goes out track perfect, get 150, 200 yards out or so, then turns back, checks in. I'm curious to know what breed that is. And I'd have to ask some more questions. Depending on the breed, it could be training, it could be, breed traits. So have to have more on that.
all right. Chuck, I want to comment. You put on there when I was putting you on my naughty list, and you said that you were only kidding. I know that, buddy. I know you're kidding around. It's all fun here. My bloodhound has tons of drive when he feels like it, says Michael Pitts.
This one by Brody, I think that would be a good one to touch on real quick, Matt, if you got some time. Says, what are y'all's thoughts on problem solving when water is involved, sloughs, canals, swamps, etc.?
Yeah, I want to pull it up. Where is it, Brody?
I saw it somewhere.
It's down towards the bottom, 820. I don't know how to share it.
You can't. You can't. You can only see them at 820. Oh, I'm way past 820. Okay.
Oh, I see it. I'm having trouble with my dog returning. No, that's a different one. That's Bradley. That's one we just read. I know. I saw it a minute ago.
It's right above Dylan Johnson is my hero. Right above that. Brody not. What's y'all's thoughts on
I don't know who that is.
Water is involved. Am I the only one? Can you guys see that?
9:20. Yeah, 8:20 there. 9:20 our time, Matt. 9:20 our time.
Oh, 9:40. Oh, I forgot. You're in a
That's all right.
time.
So what's y'all's thoughts on problem solving when water is involved? Sloughs, canals, swamps. Let the dog work. I mean, honestly, there's still scent there. There's skin oils that, oil and water doesn't mix. So you're going to have that oil slick on the surface. If it's a running water, I mean, they're still gonna check the banks, and they'll figure out what side it is. And sometimes you got to help them through it, and that's where the handler work comes in. There's times where they'll get hung up in a swamp, and I'll just circle the whole thing, or try to get around the other side and just do some controlled searches. But for the most part, I mean, I track in the swamp every day. I mean, it's just about every track we're in need of waist deep water, so it's nothing for us.
Hey Kenny, Bradley Whitmounts has a Lacey that hasn't been on a live track yet. Young dog.
Lacey. It's probably more than likely just a confidence, confidence related, probably age related more than anything.
Yeah, man, I love this problem solving, talking stuff. I can do it all night. So, all right, guys, look, I won't hold you hostage anymore. We're at 2.5 hours now. I appreciate you guys coming on and joining in the shenanigans and ambushing Kenny. It really was a lot of fun, and it really was a good, fun conversation. Good conversation from a serious side too of breed tendencies. I really threw that out there just as a ruse, Kenny, thinking it was going to be relatively mundane, and we were just going to tell bloodhound stories and talk about amazing accomplishments of our bloodhounds just to ruse you. But man, the topic was hotter than I anticipated. So, and I'm really glad it was. I'm glad that we had the conversation. It's fun, some great comments, and guys, in all seriousness, I love my bloodhound, and I appreciate you guys coming on. But there's a lot of great dogs doing a lot of great work. Breed be damned. I love my bloodhound. I love her to death with all my heart, and I'll have another one. And I just might have a cur dog too, Kenny. You've piqued my interest in that.
I mean, I ran a cur and bloodhound together, and they did some amazing work together. So
yeah, we'll see. It's just tracking style. I don't mind. We don't need to get into it. So, guys, any closing comments, Ron, Megan, Dylan, Jake, before we get back to our real lives and I get you get your work release from my prison?
Thanks for the opportunity once again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'll
Yes,
look into
thank you.
the
I
small
appreciate it.
dogs by your old.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
guys.
I enjoyed it too, even though y'all tried your best.
Yeah,
I bet you before the year's over with, you'll own another bloodhound.
There you go, Dylan.
I'm not gonna say I wouldn't.
Yeah, a chink in the armor, just like my wife says. I didn't like the color of that one. Okay. All right.
I do enjoy working them. I do enjoy training them. I'll say that.
Yeah, they're not for everybody, and you got to know what you're getting, and that's really got to be the thing. Should be the standard for every breed. You got to know what you're getting. You have to talk to people, know what you're getting, and make sure it fits your style, tracking style, home style, all that. But anyway, guys, hang with me as we cut off. We'll just hang for a minute here, but again, great topic, fun conversation. It's what it should be, just fun banter. We're on the heels. Remember, we have Iowa coming up. Iowa and neighboring states. Please, it's not too late to register. It's going to be a banger. We're going to go out with a bang. I can promise you that. And if you're interested in being a mentor in the ABTA, reach out to Emily Nail or find the application on the Facebook group or get a hold of me and Kenny. Not the group, but the Facebook official page.
Or email her at Emily at AmericanBloodTrackers.org.
email her. Yeah, we're welcoming mentors, and Emily has done a masterful job of building that program. So I'm really excited for it to get some legs. And like I said, when it develops a little bit more, just a little bit more, gets a little bit of maturity on it, we're going to have Megan on to, I'm looking at Megan. We're going to have Emily on to talk about her program, because it's simply fantastic. So hang with us, guys. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Great conversation. Appreciate the comments. Hope to see you in Iowa. More the good, less the bad, guys. We'll talk to you soon.